Welcome to the Hail to the King podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Magnus.
And today we are going to talk about Little Sisters of Elyria.
Yeah. So this story originally was published in 1998, but then was later collected in 2002's Everything's Eventual. So that's where you go to find this story, is Everything's Eventual. There's a really good audiobook version of it, read by Frank Muller. Of the
All hail the Frank.
All hail to Frank Muller. I think this might have been the last Dark Tower related recording that he did. I think he recorded this one after doing Wizard in Glass, which was his last Dark Tower book.
Yeah.
So this was his last Roland, performance, which is pretty cool. A little bit sad, but yeah. Anyways, we read this. We read this one. Listened to it. I got through it almost 2 times and loved it every single time, like always.
And I got through it 4 times. I was gonna try and make it through a 5th today, but just ran out.
It's a great one. You were gonna try to give us a little summary, right?
Yeah. So I'll do a little summary of it. So this is when Roland is a younger gunslinger, which is kind of cool because, Eddie always refers to him in the other books as old, long, tall, and ugly. So he's a young gunslinger. He's, still tracking Walter, the man in black. And he gets to this little town, Eluria, and the town is completely deserted. He could tell that something had happened there. People had, a lot of people had died. And while he's there, these slow mutants, the green folk, they attack him. And, he kind of underestimates them, and then he gets overwhelmed, and then he wakes up in this little hospital tent. And it's a little different than other tents. He's suspended by these silk wrappings rather than laying in a bed. And, he feels he feels that his skin is crawling, literally. So he's there. He makes an ally in one of the other patients there, Jarom Neumann, and Sister Jenna, and all of the other sisters are kind of against him, and they are the antagonists.
They're the nurses.
They are the nurses, the little sisters, and they are we'll go into this more, but for all intents and purposes, they're vampires. Mm-hmm. And so...
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Stephen King and his vampires.
Which he does them awesome. I'm never going to get sick of it.
He has a whole, variety box of chocolates, box of donuts of vampires, when other people it's just, boom, vampire is a Dracula, freaking... Who's that Twilight twerp? Edward, right? Yeah. It's like, there's not a lot of diversity amongst the vampire, whatever. So Stephen King adds all sorts of different ones. Anyways, continue.
No, so he makes allies. Jarom Neumann ends up dying, and Sister Jenna, she ends up helping Roland escape from the Little Sisters.
And she's like the nurse who is turning good. She was with the vampires, but she was young enough that she isn't corrupted by their, years and years and years of murder and
sucking people dry.
It sounds like they travel like city to city, town to town kind of thing, area to area. Just
they're like
setting up like their little circus tents, and I mean it's kind of weird. It's almost like the way that they behave. They might have been good at one point before they were vampires, and they ran this little hospital, and then maybe they became vampires and then continued their tradition of going around to help the different people.
I could see that.
I don't know, kind of it's just odd that they want to
heal you.
They heal you first, and then they want to suck your blood and eat you after. Like once you're healed.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Hansel and Gretel gingerbread. The witch wants to
fatten them up. And there is a reference in there to that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, anyways, so Sister Jenna...
I'll stop distracting you. Continue.
Sister Jenna, she ends up getting a hold of Roland's guns, and helping him escape, and she does it through the little doctors. And the little doctors are these little beetles, and they are what actually heal people. And they have this connection with the little sisters. It's a kind of symbiotic relationship, mutual to both. And she sicks the little doctors on some of the sisters, and then they escape, and the head sister, Sister Mary, the big sister, she ends up confronting them, and there's a little battle. Roland, can't stand up to her, and Sister Jenna can't stand up to her, and then this dog that Roland had seen at the start of the story, who has a crucifix-like marking on it in white.
Yeah, it's like a white cross on its chest against a black fur background.
Yeah. And so, the dog attacks her, and which is unusual because she usually has a lot of power over animals and, creatures of the lower orders or whatnot. And the dog attacks her and ends up killing her. And Jenna and Roland, they, make their way, and she ends up dying.
In the escape.
I guess I really wouldn't say dying. She ends up transforming, and you find out later that she has become, part of the little doctors. She is now
the horde of beetles.
The horde of beetles. So, yeah, and then Roland just continues on.
It's a little weird. So I know we're jumping to the end here, but yeah, nice. So we made the time that a time goal achievement. So, anyways, yeah. So at the end there, when she dies, like her death is a little weird to me. Like, I don't really understand why she died.
I don't either.
You don't really either?
No, so
it's like, I don't know if she loses power because she's leaving. So she leaves with Roland. They escape together. And it just seems like she kind of putters out, and one day, she wakes up and she's just a bunch of beetles.
Yeah, I guess so. It seems no, it's a little hard to figure out, and I listened to it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't get it. Which doesn't mean that it's a bad story or poorly written or anything. It's just, in real life, you don't understand everything. There's mysteries, mm-hmm. and that's how Stephen King writes. He leaves mysteries in the writing, mm-hmm. so it leaves it up to interpretation, which makes it fun. But this one I don't really understand. I just know that Roland, he kind of thinks they're gonna make love, and then he ends up falling asleep.
Yeah.
And then wakes up, and her clothes are there. In fact, he says that her shirt.
She kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi's out of there.
Yeah, like her clothes are all together. Her boot or her shirt is still tucked in to her pants or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she's gone, but he does see the beetles. And they make
the shape of her hair curl.
The shape of her hair curl. I guess it was that distinctive. I mean, no hair could curl.
It's like a Superman hair curl. No, so I mean, it's a pretty good. It's a good story, but it's a little confusing at the end. Like I said, I think maybe it might have been like proximity, like as she went away from the one. What do you think of that?
I could see that.
She went away, she lost the ability to stay in her form.
In her human form. Maybe they had to... I think they had to stay together.
It reminded me a little bit of the Outsider when he turns to the worms at the end.
Hey, that's a connection I didn't make.
Yeah, I that's just one of those things that kind of passed through my mind. So, anyways, hey, one thing that I thought was pretty cool is that we didn't mention was the little sisters themselves. Roland compares them to Rhea of the Coos.
Yeah.
Like and she's the witch from Wizard and Glass who
torments Roland.
Yeah, torments him, and it's a whole mess of things. We'll get to that in book 4 when we get to it. But anyway, it's the first witch that he ever had to deal with, and I like that they have kind of that glamour. where they look like they're young, 21-year-old nurses, and they're secretly like old hags,
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really cool.
And it's a theme that is carried out throughout all of his writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that you don't watch it, you haven't read it, but in Game of Thrones, there's a character. She's the Red Woman, and she's a priestess from this weird like fire god religion, and she wears this amulet around her neck. Okay. And when she takes the amulet off, it's like The Shining, the old woman, like going from the beautiful woman, that's like everyone's really like sexually attracted to. They talk about it. I mean, it's Game of Thrones. But she takes the amulet off in like one scene, and she's like an old hag. It's pretty cool. It's just like this, the idea of the beautiful young old haggish. Anyways, again, The Shining. There's another kind of reference. I know that's a ghost, but maybe it's kind of a witch of sorts. The old lady.
I guess
the old lady in the bathtub, room 237. Right?
Yeah.
And wait, is 237 the movie? I know the movie's different. It's 217 and 237. I think 217 is the book. Which, is it Man, I'm going to have to look this up. I'm sorry, guys. I'm failing at being a Stephen King nut. But, anyways, continue. We'll get back to the Shining thing. I'll figure it out.
No worries. But, it was interesting. You mentioned earlier that Stephen King has a whole box full of different chocolate vampires, and and I kind of like that. You don't get just one flavor. You get multiple ones. You mentioned the one in The Outsider. He's kind of a psychic vampire. You have the vampires that are most prominent in Salem's Lot and the last two books of the Dark Tower.
So, I just turned to my stupid smartphone while you were talking, and I actually totally wasn't paying attention because I was looking up the 217, the room 217. I was right. That's the one in the book. 237 is the movie. 217, I never freaking put this together. I feel really dumb about this, but 2 plus 17 is 19.
Are you kidding? You didn't realize that?
I'm really that dumb.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. I guess it's because I'm used to the movie. I've seen the movie more than I've seen the book. Or read the book. Right? I've read the book maybe once all the way through. I think I've only read it once.
The Shining?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, maybe twice. But
I'm ashamed of you.
Anyways. Yeah, I just totally missed the... I knew that it was a different number. But I just never thought about the whole 19 thing. Anyways... Give me the brief version of what you were saying.
Real quick, I compulsively add up any number that shows up. Not only, like now after reading Stephen King, not only do I add it up in his work, but I do it in other work, and
it's crazy how much
it tickles
you see
me
19.
every time I see 19. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 19.
I mean, I'll be at work doing something, and I see like a number 19 flash across the screen, or something like that. I hear it in a movie. I turn on to 19 Street or something like that, and it's always 19,
Yep.
I think once you read through the Dark Tower series, I guess this is a preview of what's to come. Anyone who's going to start reading the Dark Tower with us, 19 is a number that becomes very important through King's works, but specifically in the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And once you go 19, you can never unsee it. You just can't.
It's true.
You can't go back. Just always 19s will stick out to you in every facet of life.
It's very true.
Yep. It's cool.
Anyways, what was I saying? Oh no.
I feel bad. I feel bad that I wasn't paying attention to you, by the way.
It's because you're a jerk. The chocolate.
Okay.
Your analogy of how vampires in the Stephen King universe come in different flavors and everything.
The variety pack.
The variety pack rather than, I can't think of anything but off the top of my head.
It's the variety pack of Krispy Kreme donuts versus the dozen glazed.
Yep.
Right?
a lot of other authors.
They just pick out of the glazed ones.
They're just the glazed vampires. Stephen King likes to give you, some with bacon, Some with chocolate
The
sprinkles and
raspberry filled are my favorite.
Yep.
Yep, raspberry filled.
Well, I mean that's an okay one. That's decent.
I like the lemon one too.
That's decent.
Anyway,
Fritters.
So
are king
from now on, Stephen King's
of
vampires
donuts.
are the Krispy Kreme assorted, right? And then any other vampire, whether it be Christopher Lee, Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Or I Am Legend.
freaking Anne Rice, I Am Legend. All of those are just glazed vampires. The original glazed.
Which isn't to mean they aren't
They're not delicious. You know what? One of those donuts, whether you get it absolutely fresh or you heat it up for like 8 seconds the next day, amazing. Just like those old stories, the traditional vampire stories, except for Twilight. That's bad. It's straight up bad, by the way. I never read them. Did you ever read those?
No.
No. So I watched the movies. The movies are pretty much a joke. They got really good at the end when she becomes a vampire and it's just crazy, And there's just like random werewolves jumping all over, biting heads off of vampires. It got really exciting at the end, but everything leading up to the end of those movies was excruciating. There was a couple fun scenes. Remember the spider monkey? Did you ever hear about that?
Nope.
Oh, I'll show you this. This one part is worth it. It's like he says like, "Jump on my back, spider monkey," and then he carries her like a backpack, and he's like jumping through the trees. The Edward and the girl. It's like Yoda, It's like the craziest thing ever. But he's running as fast as like Sonic through the woods. It's totally out of place in the movies, but it's hilarious.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
Anyways, let's get back onto remember when we were a Stephen King podcast and we didn't talk about donuts?
Oh, wait. Who was the one who brought up Twilight?
It was me.
It was you.
It was me.
It was you.
Anyways, I apologize to everybody. The Twilight movies are bad, but they're kind of fun. Anyways.
In a terrible way.
Glazed vampires, assorted vampires. Where were we?
So, let's see. Where do these ones fit in? They are vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Made up of multiple parts.
I mean, it's weird that they have the bells that command, like, almost their hive mind that they become when they die. It's like the Force. When the Jedis die, I said Obi-Wan earlier. When they die and they become part of the Force, it's like when the little sisters die.
They become part of the Beatles.
The Beatles, the little doctors. Right? They're the nurses. They're the little sisters. Then they become the little doctors. Remember in I know this is getting ahead of ourselves because it's going to be in the Dark Tower, but in the Dixie Pig, isn't there like something with all the little bugs?
Yes, but we don't want to give anything away.
We don't want to give too much away, but again, there's vampires in the Dark Tower series, and
these ones are,
I guess, sometimes
more different though than
but it's like a weird cousin to the ones in the dark, further in the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways,
but
I really like his horse Topsy.
Yeah.
I wonder if he named his horse. And it's like, why would Roland name a horse Topsy? Because he sits on Topsy of it. That was my my Dark Tower, my Eddie joke, right?
Oh, that's painful.
No, it's bad.
That was bad.
He likes to sit on Topsy of it.
Oh gosh.
Where does Roland sit? On Topsy. Anyways, I'm sorry.
That's a dad joke.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's bad. I'm gonna tell my wife tonight.
I thought it was funny how he's talking about the religions of the Jesus man. The different sects from and he's like, talks about the ones who aren't allowed to, be married and be with a woman, who at least put on the appearance of, and he's just speculating on the ridiculousness of that.
Yeah, and that it's insane.
I like that the Jesus man, the religion of the Jesus man exists in the,
in Midworld. Yeah.
I was talking about Midgard earlier, and in Middle Earth and stuff. So I'm a little mixed up from a previous conversation today. Anyways.
So I do have to cry your pardon, Gunslinger. We got in an argument over this. We were talking about the little medallion
So when he's in the town about to get attacked by the slow mutants, right before then he finds a body in like a horse trough.
Yeah.
Like
and
a
it's all
trough.
bloated and everything.
It's all bloated and nasty, but it's got a necklace on, like an amulet, and he picks it up because he's going with his Roland instinct to.
Sometimes he just acts on that instinct.
And so he picks up the amulet and looks at it and puts it around his own neck. And it's you called me.
Yeah, well, no, just that. I was trying to think, because in some of Stephen King's other vampires, Salem's Lot,
they're the most glazed. The most glazed of his
they are the glaziest.
That's the Stephen King's assorted glazed.
Yep.
Or dozen glazed. Anyway, sorry,
but they can be susceptible to, faith and symbols of faith. Mm-hmm. And not always, but they can, and it's based on the faith and the belief of the individual.
Of the holder, yeah.
And so I was super confused with this one. Because I was like, well, Roland doesn't believe in, the man Jesus. He doesn't believe in him. And he has this thing, and I thought it was a cross. We got in a huge argument over it. I was like, no, it is definitely a cross.
Like a crucifix necklace?
Yeah, and I guess I thought of that because of all the talk of crucifixes and, Jesus and everything. And Magnus was like, no, it's not a cross, and I ended up making him doubt himself. And so, but I'm still wondering, what was it about? It didn't end up being a cross.
It was a rectangle.
It was a rectangle.
Like a golden rectangle that said the name John Norman.
Oh no,
loved of God.
James Norman, loved of family, loved of God.
Yeah, and again, I guess that it was talismanic. Again, we should say talismanic.
Yeah, and maybe that's it.
It may be just something about the necklace that he wore had power imbued by his family and of God.
Maybe the love,
It didn't have to be a crucifix, And again, without spoiling anything too much, like you were talking about Salem's Lot. There's the scene with Callahan.
Yeah.
Callahan. He has a confrontation with the Dracula vampire Barlow, and he holds holds a crucifix up to protect himself and to kind of overpower the vampire. And then the vampire says, let's have a truce. You put the cross down. I can't remember exactly how he does it. Anyways, he dares him to put the cross down, and he doesn't do it. He decides, nope, I'm going to stick with the cross. And then that makes the power of God the power of the white drain out of it. And later on in the Dark Tower, I'm thinking specifically of one of the illustrations from book 6.
It was book 6.
Book 6, where he's holding up the turtle, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But the idea of the power of the white channeling into a talismanic object, again, maybe that's what this rectangle was. I
could see that.
I got pretty far with that thought, but that's what I'm getting at, is it didn't have to be a crucifix.
No, and I could see that in a lot of objects in Stephen King's universe.
And the little sisters couldn't touch they couldn't harm the person wearing the necklace. And so Roland wearing the necklace, being in the hospital, he was protected by it. And so the little sisters were healing him, but they weren't able to get at him yet.
Yeah.
But they were able to get at him another way, though. Freak, man.
Oh.
Freaking gross. Like,
yeah, that's...
Yeah,
there's a little scene in there.
He gets a
happy ending.
He gets a happy ending to his hospital stay. Yeah. From the evil witches who are disgusting. And you know what? Think about it with Rhea the Coos. She did the same crap to Susan.
Which kind of does make you think. Maybe
just nasty.
Yeah, just nasty women.
Nasty witches,
Yeah.
Gross.
Oh gosh.
But yeah. Anyways, I like that when he first confronts the dog, and he's like, the dog is chewing on a leg. like a foot in a boot or whatever. And he's like, a dog, he's like, I should shoot this dog because, a dog that's tasted human flesh and whatever. It's no good. It's no good. But he holds back because he thinks that killing the only living thing left in the town is just bad.
Would just be wrong.
It just felt wrong to him. And then the dog ends up, kind of coming to his aid and saving him at the end of the book, at the end of the story.
And it's kind of...
Roland and Sister Jenna.
Yeah.
Right? Sister Jenna are leaving town, and one of the lead...
Sister Mary.
Sister Mary comes and kind of confronts them, and Sister Jenna can't sick the beetles. This sounds so ridiculous to say. If you've read the story, I guess it makes sense. But she rings the bells on her head and then commands the beetles to attack. And it worked earlier on one of the other witches, but it doesn't work on Sister Mary.
No.
So then Sister Mary's going to pounce. She's getting ready to attack. And then the dog with the crucifix on its chest, which may have been imbued with power just by Roland thinking, hey, there's a crucifix on that dog's chest, and
see, but that feels
he spares it, he spares the dog.
I could see that as maybe being enough, but it doesn't feel, because it was the only thing. He does mention this.
Okay, it was the only thing living. It was the only thing in the town already.
Yeah, and the dog wasn't afraid of the little sisters. Mm-hmm. And so it's like there had to have been some time passing that it could understand it didn't need to fear them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it feels like a plot hole. It feels like a contradiction. There's something there,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that the little sisters left, the dog was the only thing in the town left alive. Was it because it had that cross on it? But then, who? I guess I see what you're saying.
You see, yeah. So, I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah. I was gonna say earlier. Let me see if I can reclaim the thought.
Mm-hmm.
Just about Ka, and this is a pretty good point, a pretty good story to illustrate it in so short a story.
Uh-huh.
Just the concept of Ka, with Roland picking up the medallion, putting it around his neck, and he actually mentions I just feel like he kind of feels he should do that, and knowing how
mm-hmm.
Ka works, he felt like, I'll be able to return this to the family of the owner.
No, what's funny is that he does that in book 3 also. Like he gets he's talking with the people in the city of Lud.
Oh, right before they get river crossing.
Yeah, the river crossing. That's what it was. And it's kind of a similar. Does he pick up a crucifix or they give it to him?
They give it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
No, it's just interesting.
And that's a crucifix. Maybe that's where you're getting a little.
That's probably it.
Yeah. Anyways.
But it's interesting how that works. How. Just how Ka works, and in the Stephen King universe, like I was talking with my wife about this. In some books nowadays, like certain fantasy books, and I'm going to bring up one author, Brandon Sanderson, and people think he is amazing. And not saying that he's not amazing. I'm just, just kind of putting that out there. In some of his books, he has this very specific way that fantastical things, magic, whatever you want to call it, of how that works. And it's, A plus B equals C, and that's the only way that formula can work. And it's stated explicitly. But in the Stephen King universe, Ka, things like that, everything is more instinctual. It works on instinct, and that's how magic works there in so many cases in this universe. And some people would say, it's what is it, the God and the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, it doesn't bother me, and I actually think I like it more because that's how the world works. That's how the world works. There's mystery in the world, and so it's interesting seeing that mystery come into the book, because when you figure out A plus B equals C, and it's explicitly stated, through exposition and everything in the writing, it kind of takes away all the fun, takes away all the magic of the writing, where Stephen King can write a really good story and keep that magic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one thing, that's a great thought. I like that. Hey, I'm gonna E.T. finger you. Hey, I was pointing at Mark and he E.T. fingered me. Anyways,
we like to finger
phone home. One thing that we didn't bring up was the desperation connection.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I remembered reading it, and I was trying to get to it, but I didn't quite get to it on my second read through that I didn't finish. But I think Sister Jenna, doesn't she like chant? She starts chanting some of the, that whole cantoy, what?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I don't remember. I don't remember the chant that she was saying, but it is very similar to what the cantok in Desperation. And Desperation is one of his books that it takes place in Nevada, Desperation, Nevada, and people uncover. I think these miners uncover this little god, and that's what it was. This little evil demon god.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Anyways, it's just kind of a nice little Easter egg. It doesn't seem too important.
No, but it's just nice to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, just a fun little reference to Desperation. Anyways,
another one is the little sisters, not themselves, but their little tent show up in Black House.
Okay, I do. It's been a while since I've read Black House.
I just finished it.
I do remember something with that.
But they their little tent shows up there, and they kind of mention that they don't talk about them a whole lot, but they do actually say in Black House that the little sisters are vampires. And like we've already said, vampires could mean a whole range of things. It's not just one.
Yeah.
And so they are a form of vampire. And so that's kind of interesting and just confirmation.
Doesn't he talk about the town of Delane?
Yes, he does.
So that's Eyes of the Dragon.
Yeah, Delane is Eyes of the Dragon.
Doesn't he say it's
and he
like...
calls it it's also is a nickname called the Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a place where tall tales come from.
So it's almost like a fairy tale land.
And Roland himself, just a little side note, is I think he's named after the king, King Roland in Eyes of the Dragon, if I remember correctly. But yeah, he's named after that king. Which is kind of funny because that king
he's a bad king.
Is just awful at life.
It has been forever since I've read Eyes of the Dragon. That's going to be a good one.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, cool. I guess real quick, anything left on the sisters?
No, I think
it was just it's
that
fun.
Cover
it's fun to see Roland in an adventure. It's great. I wish that Stephen King would do a few more of these. I don't want to say it, but before he's done writing, we'll just say that.
Before he has gone to the library
Before he's gone to the clearing.
At the end of the path.
But it'd be great. I love these little one-off stories. And again, he gave us that with the Wind Through the Keyhole.
It's true.
So that was cool. And again, it was another young Roland story. But anyways, it was great. I'm excited to read The Dark Tower. And we invite all of you guys you can either read ahead, you can read with us at the pace that we go through the Dark Tower books. We're going to kind of play it a little bit by ear in terms of when we're going to... we'll have an order to the books, but we're not 100% on the release dates of the episodes. We'll keep you guys posted on our Instagram. We'll keep you informed every episode as we go, kind of what the plan is. But as of right now...
The next one's going to be The Gunslinger.
We are going to read The Gunslinger, the first book in the Dark Tower series. And we're really excited about it. Again, this was kind of just the hors d'oeuvre before the meal. And
I actually like
the
doing this
appetizer
before
the meal.
I like
Yeah.
doing this one before, not doing it when he released it, because this kind of whets your
Again,
appetite.
in the introduction to the story, he even kind of briefly gives like a, hey, you don't really need to know much about the Dark Tower or anything to enjoy this story. Here you go. You know,
Yeah.
someone could accidentally read Little Sisters of Elyria for the first time, and then they're like, oh, who's this Roland character? This is a cool story. And then they pick up the Gunslinger.
Well, it was included in Legends, and Legends had, let's see, just off the top of my mind, The Hedge Knight by George R. Martin. It had New Spring by Robert Jordan and a few other like fantasy science fiction authors. It had like little prequels or short stories for these authors, like kind of main, you know, I'm trying to think of the word. They're major works.
They're magnum opus.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to think of.
It's kind of the
And so that's where Stephen King included this. So I think it's safe to say that he meant for this to be something to get people into the Dark Tower.
It's like a trailer.
Yeah.
It's his trailer.
It's
for
like
the Dark
a
Tower
3-hour
series.
trailer.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, I think we're gonna aim at probably let's see.
2 weeks from now.
Probably 2 weeks from now. Doing the Gunslinger.
Yep.
I think that's a good projection. So I'll make the announcement on our Instagram as well. But yeah, thanks for listening to our episode. It's great to see any comments, thumbs up, people subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's awesome.
And always remember to subscribe and our channel.
Yeah, it's great, and I love the comments that you guys give on our Instagram. It's just cool to see a little bit of growth. It's like you plant the seed, you water it a little, the little bud comes out. It's cool
to see all the little people the little Stephen King fans.
All the little Stephen King fans coming out of the cracks like the little doctors, just scurrying around. But yeah, it's cool, and thank you guys for that. And always remember, there are other worlds than these.